All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar, Legal Basics 101, Entrepreneurial Essentials for Protecting and Growing Your Business. All right. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. So all callers will be muted. You can use the Q&A function to ask questions during and after the presentation. I will be keeping an eye on the questions as we go along. And Victoria is going to answer the questions at the end, not during the presentation. So feel free to ask questions as we go along, and I will monitor them, and then we can ask Victoria at the end. Also, if you are on social media, feel free to give us a follow. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We post a lot of valuable information, blogs, tips and tricks, interviews. So if you are interested, feel free to give us a follow on social media. And I will be putting our social media links in the chat here shortly. And just a little bit about Trademarkia. So Trademarkia is the premier online platform designed to simplify the trademark registration process for businesses of all sizes. Our user-friendly interface allows users to effortlessly search, register, and manage trademarks, ensuring that protecting your brand is both accessible and efficient. So join us in securing your brand's future with Trademarkia, where we've helped over 120,000 clients, and we are backed by lawyers. And you can visit us at trademarkia.com. So just a little bit about our presenters today. My name is Seema Tucker, and I'm the marketing lead here at Trademarkia. And today we have Victoria Velasquez Walker, and she's going to be our main presenter today. And she is an intellectual property attorney based in North Carolina. She's dedicated to protecting and advancing clients' creative and commercial interests. She joined Trademarkia in 2023 and has built on extensive experience in securing trademark and copyright registrations, guiding clients through the intricate processes within the USPTO and US Copyright Office. She takes pride in her work educating small business owners about the importance of safeguarding their brands and helping them navigate the often complex terrain of intellectual property law. Her commitment to client success is evident in every case that she handles, as she strives to ensure that businesses of all sizes can protect their innovations and thrive in a competitive market. So before I hand it off to Victoria, though, I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me and that our chat is working well. This is our first webinar with Trademarkia, so we just want to make sure all the technology is functioning. So if you don't mind just typing in the chat where you're calling in from, and I will read a few of them out just so I know that you can hear me and that our chat is working. All right, I don't see anybody typing in the chat, so that makes me a little worried. Let me just make sure that our chat is actually enabled here. I see people raising their hands. Okay, so let me just double check.
Oh, it says chat is disabled in the Q&A.
Okay, are you able to enable it on your end? If not, I can try to.
If I can.
Let's see, allow panelists.
I don't think I have that option on my end, Seema.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and it sounds like people can hear me because they're raising their hands, which is good. So I'm going to go ahead and try to figure out the chat while you continue with the presentation.
Okay, and also in the chat we have Josh from Yard Work. Hi, Josh. We have somebody from Montreal. Hi, Chad. Okay, so I'll just get started, and then Seema, you can maybe work on the the chat
Yeah, I'll work
feature.
on the chat while you get to the good stuff. So sorry about that, everybody, but yeah, I'll fix it on the back end.
Okay, so hi everybody, and Seema, thank you for that introduction. As Seema mentioned, I am attorney Victoria Velasquez Walker. I'm a business and intellectual property attorney here at Trademarkia. I've been in the practice for a number of years now. I started off in the immigration field, practicing immigration law. And I kind of fell into business and IP backwards a little bit, if you will, through that immigration work. A lot of our clients were starting businesses that had various needs for protecting their brands, business matters, as well as intellectual property. So I really fell in love with the practice. Really for small and new business owners. I really loved creating a protection plan, a plan that protects a business and enables growth. And so out of that work, I decided to pursue intellectual property and business as a as my career. And so with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. Seema, you can go to the next slide. Just a little housekeeping here. Everything in this presentation is informational, educational only. So none of the information that I say either verbally or that you see here on the presentation in the slide should be taken as legal advice. You should always consult an attorney for an individualized assessment of your specific needs. So with that out the way, let's get into the meat of what we're here for today. As I mentioned, I like to create protection plans that enable growth. So the takeaway that I want everyone here today to walk away from this presentation with is the idea that protection enables growth. Without the proper legal protections in place, a business will remain stagnant. So we're going to talk about different ways to protect the business to get it set up for growth. And just a little note here on that end, as the title indicates, this is Legal Basics 101. So we are going, this is more of an introduction webinar into these topics. We're going to hit these at a very high level, give you an introduction of what they are and how they can protect the business at a high level. Our goal is to move forward with additional webinars, maybe diving a bit deeper into each of these topics. So just want to go into this with that baseline understanding. So let's get into the first way to protect your business and enable growth. And that is the forming your business entity. Seema, you can go to the next slide. So what is a business entity? A business entity is a legally recognized organization that provides structure and liability to your business activities. What does this mean? This is really just a fancy way of saying that a business protects your personal assets. A business entity protects your personal assets. So how does this how does this work? What's the functionality there? When you establish a business entity, you create what I call the liability brick wall. This is something that I've kind of coined and created to explain to clients the importance of business entity formation. So if you Google it after this presentation, you may not find anything, but a business entity creates a liability brick wall. So once you have your business entity in place, your liability brick wall has been established. On one side of the liability brick wall, you have the operations, the debts, the obligations of the business on one side. And on the other side, you have your personal assets, your investments, your savings, your home, your children's college funds. All of that exists on the opposite side of the liability brick wall. So on the business side of the brick wall, let's just say the business is operating. Unfortunately, it's not doing well. Hi, South Africa. Unfortunately, it's not doing well, and the business is unable to pay its vendor fees. There's $100,000 judgment for unpaid vendor fees against the business. So we have $100,000 judgment on the business side. And let's just say on the personal side, you have $50,000 sitting in your savings account. So if the business is unable to pay that $100,000 judgment and we have our liability brick wall established, the business is simply unable to pay that $100,000 judgment. The $50,000 that we have sitting in our personal savings account on the other side of the brick wall is safe. No vendor, no creditor can jump over this liability brick wall and come and take your $50,000 to satisfy the debts and obligations of the business. So that is how a business entity protects your personal assets. It creates this brick wall between the business assets and the personal assets. So with that in mind, what we're going to do is explore 3 different entity types and evaluate what type of protection you achieve when we're thinking about protecting the brand and then growing the business. So Seema, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so the first entity business structure, I'll say, the first business structure we're going to review is a general partnership. Again, very high level, there are different types of partnerships that exist. There's general partnerships, limited liability partnerships, and limited partnerships. So the information here is really, again, just for general partnerships, and we can dive into partnerships in a whole different webinar by itself. So when we're thinking about partnerships, what is it? A partnership is an unincorporated business with 2 or more owners who share in the business responsibility. The key term here is unincorporated. There is no state filing required to form a general partnership. All you need is 2 or more people who agree to operate and share in the business risk as well as the business profits. So for example, let's just say myself and Seema, I want to start a business with Seema, and I say, hey, Seema, would you like to start a clothing business with me? And if we make $1 million, we'll split it $500K each. And if not, we'll also share in those losses. If Seema's response to that question is yes, then we have just formed a partnership. So partnerships, the advantage of partnerships is that they are very, very easy to form. The risk and disadvantages with a partnership is there is unlimited personal liability for the partners, for the general partners. So that liability brick wall that we were just talking about does not exist in a general partnership. So as a general partner, you have unlimited personal liability. All of your personal assets are at risk as you operate and engage in business. So another disadvantage, because personal liability is a disadvantage, right? Another disadvantage is a concept called joint liability. So each partner is has unlimited liability for all of the actions that occur in the partnership, whether it's by another partner or if it's by another employee. So if a partner or an employee injures somebody in the course of a business, you are personally liable for all of those obligations that occur from that accident. So joint liability exists when we're talking about general partnerships. And then, let's go back. One last point here. So that's our protection box, right? When we're thinking about protection, the limited liability brick wall does not exist. When we're thinking about our growth box here, a partnership is not really the mechanism for use if we're thinking about growth. Investors, people looking to invest in the business, either monetarily or with various partnerships, they're not looking for a partnership because of that unlimited liability. So when we're thinking about our 2 boxes, protection and growth, a partnership, unfortunately, does not hit the mark for either of those. Seema, you can go to the next slide. So the next structure that we'll explore is the limited liability company. A limited liability company, an LLC, is a hybrid creation where we're taking the flexibility and management structure of a partnership, and we're combining it with some protections that exist in a company or corporation. So an LLC is owned by members, and that liability brick wall does exist. So the owners, the members, do not have personal liability for the debts and obligations of the business. So that's a plus. Our protection bucket is checked when we're thinking about the LLC. Some advantages, again, we have that limited liability protection. LLCs are very easy to manage. You want to have an operating agreement in place to dictate how the LLC is being managed, roles and duties of the members, et cetera. But by far and large, you are free to create a management structure that works for you, which is different than a corporation. And we'll go into that in a second. And pass-through taxation is another benefit of an LLC. Very simple to file your taxes. You do it on your personal tax return. It's a separate form you fill out, and you do it all in one setting. So the taxation of an LLC is easy to manage. And then lastly, an advantage of an LLC is that there are fewer formalities and paperwork than are required to establish and manage a corporation. So when we're thinking about our two buckets here for today, protection, the LLC checks that box, and when we're thinking about growth, LLC also checks that box because investors do not shy away from an LLC. They will invest in brands that are established as an LLC, especially after the LLC has been established for a number of years. If you can show that the LLC has existed for a number of years, that's even more attractive to investors in partnerships. So LLC checks both of those boxes that we're talking about today. Seema, you can. Yeah. All right, so the last one, the last structure we're going to talk about here is the corporation. So a corporation is a separate legal entity owned by its shareholders. When we're thinking about our two boxes, protection and growth, a corporation obviously gets the gold star. It is going to provide you with the best, strongest protection against liability for its owners, the shareholders. And it's also most attractive to investors because you're able to raise capital by selling stock and the options to go public, et cetera. So why is the corporation the gold standard? So under the law, a corporation is seen as a separate person, if you will. A corporation can enter into contracts. It can own property. A corporation can be sued. It can incur debts. So it operates independent of its shareholders through the board of directors, et cetera. And just a quick note, because it is a common question that I receive from clients time and time again, is, should I have an S Corp or should I have a C Corp? There is no difference between an S Corp and a C Corp. A corporation is a corporation, is a corporation. What you see there, when you see the C or the S, it's simply a taxation designation that the corporation has elected. So a corporation is subject to double taxation, meaning the profits are taxed twice. You tax the profits when they are made, and then you're taxing the shareholders when they receive their dividends. So a corporation has the option to bypass that and go through a pass-through taxation method. And so that's where the C Corp and S Corp designations come in. So
Victoria, yeah, I just had a question. I wanted to pop in real quick. Can you,
Sure.
We had a question about whether this applies to US only. Do you mind, just for the audience who's calling in from different countries, can you just explain if this does or doesn't apply to them?
Yeah, great question, and thanks for asking. Yes, all of this information is related to the U.S. U.S. law. I am licensed in North Carolina in the U.S., so I'm only knowledgeable on the U.S. IP and business matters. So I apologize for anyone who was seeking some international legal analysis today. Unfortunately, and unable to provide that to you today. So let's go to the next slide. Did you have another question, Sima?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I'll put in the chat, I can put a link to our lawyers if people wanted to connect with any of our international lawyers. So
yeah, that's a great point, Seema. You know, we are a global firm. We have attorneys in various countries, so we can certainly assist with those matters. I'm just unfortunately not your girl.
yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so let's just very quickly cover you know, some of the disadvantages of a corporation. You know, we already went over the advantages. Obviously, it's the gold star when we're thinking about our protection buckets and our growth buckets. But there are some disadvantages, especially for newer and small businesses. Corporations are more expensive to establish. When we're comparing them to an LLC, there's a more significant investment up front. You also have to have your bylaws established for the corporation, so you want to make sure you have that document in place as well. And then there's also just various compliance and regulations that go into operating a corporation. So a moment ago, I talked about how operating an LLC, the management is very easy. You're free to create that structure as you see fit. Not so true with a corporation. There's, again, a lot of regulations that relate to a corporation and managing it. So you know, usually for newer and small businesses, start off as an LLC, easier to manage, more cost effective to set up. And then as the business grows, maybe, you know, transform from an LLC and convert over to a corporation. Next slide, yeah. And so just to wrap up this section on protecting your personal assets, we're going to just hit some common pitfalls here. We'll do this for each of the four topics that we're going to talk about today. So a common pitfall when we're thinking about protecting your personal assets is operating as a sole proprietorship. This may seem as a weird place for this information to appear, but this is something that I call a knowledge pitfall. Clients, when I'm engaging with clients, I'll often ask them, you know, what's the ownership, what's the entity type? And I sometimes get a response that, oh, I have a sole proprietorship. A sole proprietor or sole proprietorship is technically not an entity type. A sole proprietor is someone who is operating a business, but they have not incorporated. So they have not formed an LLC, a limited liability partnership, or a corporation. So the thought that somehow a sole proprietorship gives you some protection in your business is a knowledge pitfall, if you will. And then the most important one on this slide, just one second. Yeah, the most important one on this slide is improper entity management. So we started off this section talking about the liability brick wall that is established. This liability brick wall can be knocked down if you are not managing the entity properly. So you want to create the liability brick wall, but you also want to keep it solid. You want to make sure that no one can jump over to this side of the wall and go after that $50,000 that we have in our savings account. So how do you do this? You do that by properly managing the business entity. You want to document your business decisions. Even if you are a single member LLC, you should be having meetings with yourself. You want to make sure that you're documenting why you needed to take out a loan, what's the advantage for the business, what's the payback plan, et cetera. You want to make sure that all of the business decisions exist in a document somewhere, and that you are managing the entity correctly. And the second common pitfall here that I see far often is commingling of funds. This is B on the screen is the #1 way to knock down that liability brick wall is commingling funds. You really want to make sure when you've established that business entity, you have that liability brick wall established, that you are treating the business assets and your personal assets as two separate entities, right? You don't want to have personal expenses on the business account. You want to make sure that everything is separate and apart, because commingling of funds is really the #1 way to knock down that liability brick wall and go after those personal assets. So just make sure if you do take the steps to form the business entity, you also manage the entity properly. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to turn our attention from protecting your personal assets to protecting your business assets. And we can jump to the next slide here. Trademarks and copyrights are business assets. They may not seem like that, but they are valuable. A trademark is probably the most valuable asset that your business has, but it's often the least protected. And that's, I think, a result of, again, a knowledge pitfall. So let's talk about what trademarks are, what copyrights are, the difference, and we'll get into our protection buckets and our growth buckets as well. So a trademark, the legal definition is it is a source identifier. That's the language that's in the statute. I like to think of trademarks as your brand's identity. It's how you are identifying your business in the marketplace. So this includes your name, your logo, your slogan. Those are the common trademarks. But we also have a lot of uncommon trademarks: sound, scent, product design. Almost anything that you're using to identify your business in the marketplace is a trademark and can be registered as a trademark. Compare that to copyright. So copyright is original work of authorship. Think content. It is it's music, it's book, it's graphic designs, it's software, it's courses, it's ebooks, it's guides, it's your website. It's anything that exists in a tangible medium of expression, meaning that's just a fancy way of saying that it can be viewed, heard, read over and over again. Those are your copyrights. That's content. So trademarks, think source identifiers, your business identity. Copyright, think content. So we have identity and we have content. So let's look at trademarks and our protection bucket here. How do trademarks protect the business? Trademark registration is the only way to own your business name. Without a federal registered trademark, you do not have the exclusive right to own your business, or to use your business name, to use your logo, to use your slogan, etc. Others can use it or something confusingly similar. So when we're thinking about our protection bucket, we want to register our trademarks because we want to own our brands, right? So we want to own our brands through trademark registration. When we're thinking about our growth bucket, it comes down to, I think, something very, a common principle, which is, why would I pay you for something that I can just do myself, right? So when we're thinking about growth, investors are going to shy away from the business. You're not going to be able to create a unique identity in a marketplace where you stand out if anyone can just copy what you're doing. So when we're thinking about our growth bucket and trademarks, we check that box because trademark registration creates a space where if you want to use something that I'm doing, something that's unique and or something similar to it, then you have to come through me for either working with me directly or some sort of licensing deal. So trademarks definitely, check our boxes, our protection box, and then our growth box. And then also just one last point when we're thinking about trademark registration and protection. You also want to protect the business from legal risk. So when you're using a business name, other trademarks you see here on the screen, without having vetted them via an attorney, there's legal operating risk. You could be using a trademark that someone else owns or is confusingly similar to one that is already registered. If that is occurring, then there is significant legal risk in the business, and your business could be ripe for a trademark infringement lawsuit. So, just going through that process reduces that risk of the business and protects the profits from such lawsuits as well. So let's talk about copyright, thinking about our protection buckets and our growth buckets here. So with copyrights, it's really, pretty much the same. When we're thinking about protection, when you register your copyright, you acquire what we call a bundle of rights. The bundle of rights are 6 rights. Some of them include the right to display the work, the right to reproduce the work, and the right to create derivative works. So copyright registration provides you with a bundle of rights that only exist for you within that content. So it checks our protection bucket there. And when we're thinking about our growth bucket, it's the same thing when we're talking about trademark registration, right? If someone can just copy what you're doing because you haven't taken steps to protect it, then instead of working with you in a partnership or investing in your brand, they'll simply just go ahead and recreate it from themselves, because it's usually more cost efficient for them to do so. So just one last point here on trademarks and copyrights. So we talked about, what a trademark is, what a copyright is, the difference between them, and how they check our protection and growth buckets. Last point, you may be thinking, now I understand all of this information. When should I register either my trademark or my copyright? The answer to both of them is as soon as possible. When we're thinking about trademark registration, ideally, you want to register your trademark before you've even launched your business through an intent to use application. And that's a whole separate webinar on its own, so we won't go down that rabbit hole. But ideally, that's when the trademark would have been protected. If not, ASAP. Our trademark system is largely a first to file system. There's caveats to that. There's always caveats in the law. But by far and large, the first person to file the trademark application has an easier and more cost efficient way to protect their trademark. So ASAP. And then the same thing with copyrights. Copyrights are a bit different because if you don't register the copyright before it's published to the public, you do lose some of the statutory damages that you can recover. So you can always register a copyright after it's been published, but you lose some of those rights if you did it before you publish the work. So the same thing with copyright, ASAP, you want to get that IP protected as soon as possible. Seema, we can go to the next slide. All right, so common pitfalls when we're thinking about trademarks. As I mentioned, the only way to own your business name is through trademark registration, not LLC formation. So this is another knowledge pitfall. Clients time and time again believe that because they formed an LLC, that their business name is protected. That is incorrect. As we started off this discussion, we now know that LLC formation serves a different purpose, which is protecting your personal assets, creating a separate business entity to operate and engage in business. So an LLC does not protect your business name. You have to take an additional step to register your trademark at a federal level. And then just, again, another knowledge pitfall here is this belief that trademark registration requires a significant investment. There are firms that charge thousands of dollars to register trademarks, and they do exist. But there are establishments, firms, and companies like ourselves, like Trademarkia, that exist to help new or small business owners, or any business owner who wants to seek legal assistance at an affordable cost. Our founding mandate, our attorney, our lead attorney here, Raj, created Trademarkia because he saw a gap in the market where new and small business owners were unable to protect their business, and it stifled their growth because they did not have access to attorneys. So trademark registration in intellectual property and business matters do not require a significant investment because we exist to help owners in a cost-effective and efficient way. And then just two quick points here when we're thinking about common pitfalls for copyright registration. The first one is just simply failure to register. By far and large, I don't know why, but clients are not registering their copyrights. So much of our business content, our assets are in copyright in 2024. Books, guides, graphic designs, all of this is content that is valuable and can be protected via copyright registration. So simply just the failure overall to register copyrights is a common pitfall. And then just really quickly on this point, it's just there's sometimes some misunderstanding of what copyright protects. So copyright protects a creative expression of an idea, but it does not protect the idea itself. So an example would be the idea is a group of superheroes that are going to save the world from an evil person. That idea, that concept is not something that you can protect via copyright registration, but the creative expression of that idea is. So we have a group of superheroes named the Avengers. We have Iron Man, we have Hulk, we have Black Widow, and they're going to save the world from an evil alien, if you want to call him an alien, named Thanos, right? So that creative expression of that idea is protectable. Just wanted to make sure we hit that because that tends to be a common pitfall of clients seeking protection for an idea and not the creative expression itself. Seema, we can go to the next slide. All right, so our third topic here is protecting your business relationships. And we go to the next slide, Seema. So you protect your business relationships through the use of customized contracts. Notice I said customized contracts and not contracts. And I said that for a reason. A contract is a legally enforceable agreement where the parties have specified the relationship and the rules and regulations, if you will, of that relationship. So your business has both the internal relationships and external relationships. Internal would be your employees, and then external is, everyone from vendors, independent contractors, those working in the business on, an independent basis, manufacturers, et cetera, everyone who's not an employee of the business, right? So when we're thinking about our protection box and our growth box, customized contracts hit the mark there as well. So when we're thinking about our protection box, a customized contract checks that box because it clearly identifies your relationship. It outlines the scope of the work, the payment terms, the deadlines, and all of this is specific to your individual business. So we check our protection box because we're clearly outlining what this relationship is and all of the details that go along with it. When we're thinking about our growth box, trademarks, customized trademarks do in fact check that box as well, because one of the key benefits of a customized contract is risk mitigation. So when we're drafting contracts, we can put in many various different clauses to mitigate your risk, your operating risk as a business. Liability clauses, warranty clauses, indemnification, and then also what is really important is how to terminate a business relationship. So when we're talking about mitigate risk, we're really talking about profits, right? Making sure that you are seeking the benefit of the deal that you've entered into. And business relationships usually go sour when you're not seeing the profits that you thought you would see, or you're paying more in expenses than you initially thought you would. So customized contracts enable growth because they can help you get out of a bad deal, and they can help you save your profits, which can be reinvested into the business. Next slide, Seema. Okay, so our common pitfalls with contracts. As you can see here on the slide, we have a number of items here. I think we see more issues, if you will, with clients with contracts than a lot of other things. I don't know why, but we'll just get into some of the common pitfalls here. So number one is using a contract found online. There are thousands of places that you can go online and download a contract, right? There's so many websites. There's places on, third-party websites. I won't name them, but there's so many places that you can go and download contracts these days. It's a pitfall to do that because when you're utilizing a contract from these sources, the language it tends to be very broad. A contract, and I'll go into this in the third point here, a contract should be drafted to protect a certain party. And when you're using contracts found online, the language is usually broad. Critical details are absent from that contract because it's obviously not customized to your specific business. So what makes your business unique and protectable, what you want to protect in that relationship, is often not there. And because of this can lead to misunderstandings and disputes, and really a contract that's not serving you well because it's not it's too vague and not specific to your business needs. So the second point here is utilizing a contract from a business that is similar to yours. I know cost is always a factor for business owners. And I've come across clients who have found a business that, they're operating the same type of business as them, and they want to simply cut costs and copy their contract because they can find it online. You don't want to do that, just because, let's say I'm a personal trainer and I see a personal trainer, they have a website, they have their contract available there. You don't want to copy that. It's just not good practice. Number one, we don't know who drafted that contract. We don't know where it came from. That person themselves could have copied it from somewhere else. So we don't know the knowledge basis behind the drafting of that contract. And then number two, there's local laws that apply to businesses. Each state have their own laws and regulations of how businesses should operate. So you could be copying, laws that are not applicable to your state, or, adding unnecessary legal restrictions into your practice, which could render the trademark unenforceable in your state. So you don't want to copy a contract from another business simply because it's similar to yours. And then three, this is really the meat here, and I've kind of been talking around this with the first 2 points. A contract, not all contracts are the same. Contracts are complicated documents. In law school alone, we spend a year on contracts. It's a 2-semester class. Then you take an additional class to learn how to draft the contracts. And they're just complicated documents, and there's a lot that goes into it. But the key takeaway from today should be that every contract is drafted to protect a certain party. So an example would be, let's say Seema is selling her car, and she comes to me and she says, "Hey, Victoria, can you draft a vehicle sale agreement for me to use in the sale of my car?" And I will, of course, say, "Yes, Seema, I will help you." So when I draft that contract, everything in that contract is going to be from the position of protecting Seema, the seller. all of the warranties, all the terms, the payment terms, the conditions, the right to terminate, all of that is going to be seller friendly because that contract is drafted to protect SEMA, the seller. Let's say that contract, the SEMA was very appreciative of my assistant. She wanted to help out and post that contract online. Let's say a buyer sees the vehicle sale agreement online and says, hey, I'm going to buy a car. I want to use this contract to protect my interest. I'm going to send it over to the seller and see if they can sign it and we can use it in the course of our deal. That would be a misstep from the buyer. Why? Because everything in that contract is drafted to protect the seller. So by signing that agreement and sending it over to the seller, the buyer has really done themselves injustice because that contract, the terms are not meant to protect the buyer. They're meant to protect the seller. And that's really the big issue with contracts online. They're either too vague to protect your interests adequately, or we just don't know what that contract or who that contract is meant to protect because they're not specific to your business. And unfortunately, if you're not a legal professional, you're not an attorney, it's very hard to look at a contract and truly understand who is this contract protecting. So we really don't want to use just any contract that we find online. And then just, really quickly, these last 2 points here, making edits you don't fully understand. As I stated, contracts are complicated documents. Changing certain terms here, deleting this part here, all of that may seem simple, but when we're thinking about an enforceable contract as a whole, small changes could render a trademark either too vague and unenforceable. So then you're using a document, again, that just doesn't serve your interest. And then the last point here, I don't really think we have to hit on, you just want to use a customized contract in your business. It's good practice for all of the, the points that we mentioned here. Next slide. So our last topic here when we're thinking about protecting your business to growth is the Federal Trade Commission. By far and large, clients are unaware that they have to be compliant with FTC rules and regulations. So the FTC is a federal agency and they are tasked with the duty of protecting consumers from unfair business practices. What you see on the screen here is just a number of ways they do this: advertising, endorsements, promotions, and various data and privacy regulations. I'm not going to go into all of that today. This is just informational for you to see the various ways in which the FTC protects consumers. But what you should take away from this slide is that you should be aware as a business owner, if you are selling and promoting goods or services online, you should certainly be aware of the FTC and make sure that your practices are in line with the regulations there. Seema, you can go to the next slide. And, very simple, the pitfall here when we're thinking about FTC is simply being unaware that FTC regulations apply to your business, no matter how small, no matter how new it is. You need to be aware of the FTC and their rules and regulations. So when we're thinking about our protection buckets, when we're thinking about the FTC, our protection and our growth buckets, FTC provides protection for the business. It's really reputation protection. You don't want one to have complaints to the FTC because that can prompt an investigation into the business. But you also don't want to become a business that's known for violating the various advertising and privacy regulations that the FTC has. There is a business, again, I won't say any names here in this presentation. It's a very popular clothing brand who is making a name for themselves for violating FTC rules. There's been a lot of news stories about this company. And so that impacts, client engagement and your reputation. And then when we're thinking about our growth bucket, obviously, being compliant with the FTC protects your growth because it protects your profits, right? if there is an investigation and the FTC finds that investigation to be valid, they will levy some fines, and that's really how they operate. So fines, lawsuit, injunctions, all of that impacts growth. So FTC compliance, when we're thinking about protection and we're thinking about growth, checks both of those buckets there. So I know that may have been a lot. So just to recap, we talked about protecting your business to grow. We talked about protecting your personal assets, your business relationships, your business assets, and also your profits. So Seema, I will turn it over to you. We can go through some of the questions that we have in the chat.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Victoria. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I know you guys had to take time out of your schedule to join us. So we're really grateful that you could be here with us today. We only have a few more minutes, so I want to make sure that everybody has what they need. If you want any help from us, I put the link in the chat. It's trademarkia.com. You also have the opportunity to book a consultation with a lawyer for 15 minutes if you're interested. So with that being said, we only have a few minutes left. So I'm going to go ahead and ask some of the questions that came in. So one of the first questions, Victoria, somebody was asking, let's see, do we need insurance when we operate as a DBA doing business as, and when can we operate as an LLC? So, and if any of these you're unable to answer on this webinar, we can try and, follow up individually, or yeah, just let us know what you are able to and not able to answer on the webinar.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So when we're thinking about brand protection, complete overall brand protection, it includes non-legal mechanisms like insurance. So you want to, certainly depending on what that business is, what type of services or products it's selling, insurance is certainly something that you should look into at the start. So you certainly want to think about insurance as far as protection of the brand as a whole. And then the DBA and LLC question, if I understand it correctly, you want to form the business entity as soon as you can, right? Because the business entity, again, protects the personal assets, and it protects you from the risks that are inherent in operating a business. So you don't want to delay in establishing an LLC. It's one of those things that, you can just go ahead and establish it fairly quickly at the state level. I think the processing time, each state is different, but I don't think it's any more than a month in any state. But, fact check that if you will. And then the DBA question, I believe you're asking, should you operate as a DBA or form an LLC? It sounds like in that question, the DBA is an unincorporated entity, maybe like a sole proprietorship. So you don't want to operate as a DBA with any unincorporated structure, right? You just want to go ahead and form that business entity, establish that liability brick wall, and protect the personal assets. I hope that answered the question.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah. And if the person who asked, if that wasn't clear, let us know. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question. So you mentioned trademarking the name of the company. What if my company name has been in use since 1986? Is it too late to file a trademark?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's not too late to file the application. So trademark registration is a two-step process. The first step, we conduct a trademark clearance search. We evaluate the registrability of that trademark to see, one, has someone already registered something exact or confusingly similar. So trademark registration, the protection that you receive once you have a registered trademark is broad. You have your exact trademark and also anything that is confusingly similar. So if you have been using the trademark since 1980 something, we want to first evaluate what exists on the database, right? What exists on the registry. There may be some that is going to prevent the trademark from registering because it's, you've been using it for a long time, but you haven't taken the steps to register it. That doesn't mean, trademark registration is impossible. It just means that we may have to do an additional work to register the trademark. So no, it's never too late. If the business has been operating from 1986 and you have not registered the trademark, you certainly want to start the process so we can get the name protected if possible, or figure out what other avenues we have to register it if it's possible.
Perfect. All right, we have time for one more question. So somebody was asking, they said, we already have a company here in Europe along with the EU trademark. It's an LLC. How can this be expanded to the US, and what business entity could be formed in this case?
Yeah, so that's a very specific question. We don't want to get into specifics too much here because again, we're not providing legal advice, and there's other people on the call. So in general, your UK registration can be used to help secure registration in the US, so that UK registration can be helpful in the registration process for the trademark. As far as business entity formation, all of the business entities that exist in the US are open, for selection, right? If you want to explore corporations, if you want to explore an LLC, all of that is open for you. You also want to think about what states to form such entity in. Each state has, some states are more business friendly, like Delaware. It's about exploring what those entity structures look like here in the US, and what's more beneficial for that specific business.
Got it. Perfect. All righty, everyone. We are at time. So I just want to say, if you don't mind, just taking a moment to write something new that you learned today in the chat. It's always helpful for us to see, what was new information for you, and it helps us dictate future content. I just want to thank Victoria so much for today's presentation, and we're so happy to have you, and we're grateful that you were able to take these complex topics and make them understandable for our audience. And yeah, just want to thank the audience for joining us today, and we hope to see you on our next webinar. So thank you all for joining.